Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Avery Dukes, and I am the Community Impact Director at the American Heart Association in Oregon and Southwest Washington. It's my pleasure to welcome guests from across Washington and Oregon to the American Heart Association's community conversation about building a happier and healthier work environment, sponsored by Providence Health Plan. We're so excited to have you join us today, but before we start, just a note for our audience. You'll notice a Q&A icon in your menu. This is where we want your questions. Drop questions in the Q&A, and if we don't cover it, we will follow up in an email. And you can also feel free to comment and stay engaged by typing into the chat. Because this is a webinar, you don't need to worry about muting or unmuting, sharing, or anything else. So sit back and relax with your virtual friends. Now I'd like to introduce you to our esteemed panelists today. Dr. Paul Geiger has served Providence since 2005. He's the Medical Director of Behavioral Health at Providence Health Plan. And before joining the health plan, he was the Senior Regional Medical Director for Portland Medical Group's Behavioral Health. In that role, Paul provided clinical leadership for the Oregon region's development of behavioral health services and managed the clinical and financial performance of PMG Behavioral Health Medical Group. We're excited to have you share education and tools with us today, Dr. Geiger. Next, I'd like to introduce Vashti Boyce. Vashti Boyce is the owner and founder of Wild Iris Consulting, LLC. They are an experienced behavioral healthcare and management professional with more than 7 years of experience across clinical, research, and administrative realms. Vashti leans into their educational foundation, vocational experiences, and integrative values as they work with individuals and organizations, illuminating how we can better relate to and work with one another in a way that promotes racial equity and social justice. In their consulting work, Vashti focuses on leadership and exposing those tasked with creating and maintaining organizational culture to the ways equity should and can be embedded in every facet of an organization, regardless of the size, customer or client base, or industry. Vashti, we're so grateful to have you here today. So as we're talking about promoting a happy and healthy work environment, we know that mental well-being plays a big role in this. So Dr. Geiger, can you provide us some insight as to what we mean when we say mental well-being and how it plays a role in the workplace?
Sure thing. And I'll give you my version of it. Thinking about mental well-being, a couple things come to mind. First of all, you can't be well if you're ill. And so part of wellness is really the absence of illness. So that means, identifying and treating any kind of condition that exists. And that's kind of the standard kind of medical model of thinking about health as absence of illness or treating illness. But we know, I think we've had an expanded view, I think lately about what health means and what mental health means. And I think we mean more than just not being ill, not being sick. We mean, being strong. Being strong doesn't mean just not being weak. It actually means that you have capability and capacity. And so for mental wellness, the things that I think about as being important are things like resiliency, how folks are able to deal with stress, being able to kind of overcome things that will invariably pop up in life. So I think that's part of it, building those skills and that reserve. The other thing I really think of in terms of, mental well-being is this idea of balance, in that, often, an unhealthy state happens when you get out of balance with too much work or not enough of the right food or not exercising, not connecting with folks. And so I really think balance is a really key term for me when I think of mental well-being. And so that's, taking care of your physical and emotional health, your kind of personal journey in the world, in your life, both in terms of your, work and family and your community, and maintaining connection to the people that are important to you. So that's just some ideas to think about, kind of, how I think about mental well-being.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I love that you mentioned balance. I think that's such an important part of everyone's life. I know something that I think about a lot. Vashti, what are your thoughts?
Not too different from Dr. Geiger. I think The way that I conceptualize well-being as a whole is that it's holistic, so it's not necessarily separate from your physical well-being. I think another thing that is very important as far as like creating that balance is connection to community. Whatever that community means to you, it could be blood, it could be religion, it could be identities, and connection to self. I think a lot of people, at least in the last 3 years, have like realized I am not who I was walking through this world thinking I was, right? And so that kind of balance and equilibrium of I'm living the life that I actually want to live right now, and I think that that's a big part of it. Um, and again, just talking about intentionally creating a community so that you can have the balance and support. Um, Dr. Geiger said that it's not just an absence of illness. And I think of the quote about thriving as opposed to surviving, right? I think when we're out of balance mentally, physically, what have you, we're surviving. And that is a completely different kind of set of skills, a different set of kind of way of being in the world than if we're thriving.
Absolutely. I think that's an excellent point. I know I definitely work differently when I feel like I'm surviving instead of thriving. It changes the way that we're working and the way that we're interacting with others around us. And we know that today's work environment has changed for a lot of us. Like you mentioned, the past 3 years, especially, hybrid and work from home positions have become much more common. Vashti, do you think you can share with us some things that we can do, whether we're an employer or an employee, to adapt to these changes?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important part for me, given my background in behavioral health, right, is always setting boundaries and expectations, and just being very clear about what hybrid means to your organization, what working from home means for your organization. I think what we found, and again, a lot of people have found, is I actually don't like working 9 to 5. Like I work better 10 to 6 or 7 to 4. And so being very clear about what your expectations are. You have to show up at meetings, but whether or not you are on at 10:30 in the morning on a Tuesday, I don't care as long as your work gets done. Or if you do care, being very clear about what you're expecting from folks. And I think another thing is also to be very aware that not everyone is in the same space, right? We all have different experiences, different home lives, different personal lives, and really making sure that we take the time as managers. And I know we don't have a lot of it, but taking the time as managers to really get to know the folks that work with you, and understanding what is going to be kind of equitable for them. Someone might love working remotely 100% of the time, and other folks are like, if I don't come in, I can't get work done, right? And understanding that everyone comes to the table with something different and figuring out a way that we can kind of facilitate folks operating in the best way possible. But I think the biggest part of that is speaking to and getting to know the people that you're working with, for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I love the emphasis on the equity piece there. Dr. Geiger, what have you seen?
Yeah, I think the question is around, what are the challenges posed by remote work and mental well-being. I think, and I think physical well-being too. This is pretty new. I think we're still learning. This is like a massive kind of social experiment that's happening kind of overnight. And I think there are some clear downsides to remote work. People don't move as much. I think there's research showing that people aren't getting as much physical activity as they used to. The country has gained weight as a whole, although that's, a trajectory we've been on before, but there's some research to suggest that. So I think as we think about how to stay healthy with remote work, a couple of things come to mind. One is I think we really need to think about kind of what's changed and what's changed for a negative, and then think about mitigating. And so, so for me, I try to, get my mile and a half of walking in every day. Because I think, frankly, I'm not moving as much as I used to when I had it. Even though I had an office job, I was running around the building and going up the stairs, et cetera. So doing that, I'm also less I work from home 100% right now with my current situation. And so I am a little less connected to my colleagues. And so thinking about, are there ways that I can intentionally promote that connection, whether that's, virtual, drop-ins at noon, or maybe even socializing a little bit after work, if that's feasible. So I think, mitigating some of those things that may have a negative consequence. And I think, this has been very helpful for a lot of people. People talk about this idea of a work-life balance. I've really liked this term called work-life blend, which is this idea that, for some people it might, they might prefer to work till 7 one day because that allows them to go to their kids' play from 1 to 3 in the afternoon. And so like the idea that you've got a little more flexibility, I think can be leveraged to help people, achieve what they want during the day. So, flexibility and intentionally mitigating some of the downsides to remote work, I think are important.
Yeah. And I know that you mentioned, not everything feeling like a community anymore when you're working from home, really trying to make that connection. And I'm curious what kind of innovative approaches you've seen at play, in leadership, what they're doing to really encourage community and promote community within the workspace.
Yeah, I think, to the degree possible, having some opportunity to meet in person, if that's possible, is helpful. And if it's not, or if you're, thinking about how do I improve or augment the virtual experience, having people, we've done a variety of different, tricks, if you will. And, whether it's, everybody who starts a meeting has to, share what they did this weekend, or, bring a little bit of their personal life into the space so people are feeling like they're connected. I think that's important. I've experimented with, having, a drop-in hour where there's nothing really assigned, but if you just want to kind of drop in and see your colleagues and, talk about the Blazer game or whatever, putting that in, because, those spaces existed in the workplace before, the water cooler, right? And so I think that thinking about, how do you create a virtual water cooler, or at least a proxy for that, is worthwhile.
Vashti, have you seen something similar with the water cooler talks? Do you think they still have a space in a hybrid environment?
I think they do. Before I started Wild Iris, I was working at Cascadia Health in one of the clinics, and I instituted kind of a happy hour and blocked everyone's schedule off from like 4 to 5 on Fridays or something like that, just to kind of bring back, like Dr. Geiger said, this kind of like, guess what I'm doing this weekend, or my kids have a game, and kind of creating that community environment, but also making it encouraged, but not forced fun, right? So making sure that people had that time off. And if you didn't show up, you got an hour to do whatever you want. And then I leaned into a lot the weekly team meetings that were kind of like whatever when we saw each other in person. But as soon as COVID hit and most of them were working from home, and I was, still in real life, people craved that. And then they were like, okay, team meetings, because before it was like, oh, we're going to talk about X, Y, and Z. And then team meetings became, I'm really struggling with like working from home in a studio apartment. So like my work and my life and my home is all in one space. What are y'all doing? And so it really expanded kind of the support that they were able to give each other, in addition to obviously, getting work done.
Thank you for that insight. Mm-hmm. I know employee resource groups have been a really great opportunity for folks to kind of have that assigned space to share what they're doing, to relate to one another. How have you seen them be beneficial? Dr. Geiger, I'd love to hear your insight.
Yeah, I think that's still work in progress. It still feels to me. So, we use technology, right, to link work. So if you're, whether that's, we use Microsoft Teams, we have various channels where people are able to kind of publicize things. So that helps a little bit in an asynchronous kind of way, but it still kind of lacks that personal connection. I think that the one thing that we've done, and in fact, this is a little bit recently, is my boss recently decided to have more frequent meetings with his directs, in just, even if it's just a 30-minute every week, quick check-in. If people don't have anything, they don't have anything, but it's there as a placeholder. And it's been a nice, I've liked that a lot, just because it, it's there, there's this opportunity, and it allows managers to have a little bit of a better sense of, how their folks are doing. Because I think that, talking about mental wellness and mental well-being, a big important role for a manager is knowing how their people are doing, and can't do that if you're not interacting with them in a way that you're able to pick up on things.
Absolutely. And we know that not everyone has as flexible of a space as some of us may, and hybrid environments aren't always possible. So I would love to hear from both of you what suggestions you have for individuals who are working in the office and still need to be focusing on their mental well-being and making sure that they have that work-life blend. Vashti, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I think setting up some sort of schedule or ritual, really big on, even though I'm working from home, I kind of like shut down like I would if I was in the office, take that time that would have been my commute to kind of just relax and not do anything. And then come home and do kind of the afternoon things. And I think what's really important, and what we found, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, was that because everything was kind of in the same place, a lot of folks were like, I feel like I'm just kind of floating around in the world. And so I think having some rituals, being very clear about your time, whether you're in the office or at home, to kind of break up the day and have definitive lines of, this is work Vashti, this is home Vashti, regardless of kind of where I am. And just being able, again, to just make sure that there's space and clear communication about how you are and how you're feeling, to kind of be able to be in a space where if you need to reach out, you can. If it's like, I can't keep my boundaries, or I, for some reason, can't seem to log off at 5 o'clock, being able to, being able to kind of voice that. And as managers, again, like Dr. Geiger said, it's getting in there with your people and figuring out, is Jane working till 7 o'clock when she said she was logging off at 5? I think it's just about being very aware of ourselves, and as people managers, being as aware as possible as our people.
Absolutely. Thank you for that insight. It's definitely important to check on where folks are and ensuring that we are setting those boundaries. Dr. Geiger, have you seen a similar thing as far as structure and boundaries are concerned?
Yeah, well, I think that, just to echo what Vashti was saying, I think that ever since work became, entered the information age, not everybody works in that kind of a space, but a lot of people do, and certainly a lot of people in my kind of niche work in that kind of space. And the problem with information work is you can work at 2 a.m. You could work, 24/7. It's possible for you to be working. And that flexibility, I talk about work-life blend, that can be really great. If you have a need, let's say you want 2 hours in the middle of a day to do something important to you, being able to say, I'm going to not work from, 2 to 4 on a Thursday because I got some cool, my nephew's in a play, and I've got the ability to do that. And then I'll make it up somewhere else. That's great. However, you got to be, that old saying, you have to be a really good boss to yourself. So you need to know, like, what's a reasonable amount of time to work. And so for me, I just kind of create a couple of rules, and I break them probably more than I should, but, I don't want to be emailing after, X PM in the day, right? Computer's done, keeping track of hours worked in the week, try not to do any work on, I like the Saturday idea, the Sabbath idea. There's some wisdom to that kind of cultural tradition, not to work at all on a day, to recover. Recovery is important. Even Olympic athletes don't exercise every day, right? They know you get hurt when you do that. You got to take a break. So I like the idea of interval training, setting boundaries, sticking to them, and then having some flex when it makes your life better. If you can flex, and that might mean you may have one day you're working late, but you were able to do something super cool. That's kind of best of both worlds. And so I think that's really important. And I'll just squeeze in here too. The other thing that can go wrong, I think, is a lot of employers have gone to this kind of unlimited PTO for certain kinds of work types. And that's great if people actually take the days and there's a culture there. So I think it's really important for managers to know, it's unlimited PTO. Of course, you got to show up a couple times in the year, right? Otherwise, why are you there? So it's not really unlimited, but it's kind of unlimited. So I really encourage people who, if they're in an unlimited PTO scenario, that they really have an understanding with their manager is what's the minimum I'm taking off per year, and the manager make sure they do that so they don't get burnt out, hurt, or ill. So I think that's a trap that people can fall into. You need a culture that encourages people to take time.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I think the cultural piece is so important. And actually, speaking to culture, someone in the chat shared that they have created Critical Mass Wednesdays. So several of the folks in their office go to the office one day a week. And I think that's really wonderful. It's a great opportunity to really interact with each other. And like you were sharing earlier, get that piece of personal lives. So I love that piece. And I think we are just out of time here. So I will say thank you so much, Vashti and Dr. Geiger, for all of the insight that you've provided today. We really appreciate your input and your collaboration. And now it's very clear that there are many ways we can mitigate stress and work to keep ourselves and those around us feeling great at work and at home. There's no better time to start using these practices than today. So we'll now have Megan Meister, certified yoga instructor and a member of our AHA team, walk us through a mindful exercise that is a tool you can take away from today's webinar and use as an emergency stress reduction exercise whenever you need it. Thanks, Megan.
Thanks, Avery. I'm going to invite everybody that's on the call to find a comfortable seat. I know for me, while I was listening to them talk, I was cross-legged, so feet flat on the ground. If you want to move the fleshy goodness out from underneath your sits bones so you can feel the ground support you. Then if you need more energy, flip your palms up on your thighs or your knees. Or if you need to feel that grounded energy, palms down. And then roll your shoulders up, down your back. Really feel that broadness happening through your shoulders. And then soften the windows of your eyes closed. Or find one fixed, soft gaze. And I'm going to read something to you. And as I do, just breathe naturally without any expectations on how that breath is actually flowing, but rather that it is. So walk slowly. It only takes a reminder to breathe, a moment to be still. And just like that, something in me settles, softens, makes space for imperfections. The harsh voice of judgment drops to a whisper. And I remember again that life isn't a relay race, that we will all cross the finish line together, that waking up to life is what we were born for. As many times as I forget, catch myself charging forward without even knowing where I'm going, that many times I can make the choice to stop, to breathe, and be, and walk slowly into the mystery. So as that sinks in, right, that pause throughout our day, really 5 moments, right, even in and out. And we're going to breathe together like we're all in this room. So breathe and feel everything expand, your lungs, your ribs. And then exhale, sigh it all out. Generous breath in. Even more generous breath out. One more just like that. Again, breathe in. Audible exhale out. And then we're going to take some movements. Again, seated. I'm going to flip to the other side just so you can see what my spine is doing. And then flip your palms if you needed energy. So palms face down towards your thighs. Inhale, cow pose. Gaze up, arch your spine. You can use your palms against your legs to create a little bit more stability. And then exhale, cat, curve and round. Draw everything in, belly to spine, chin to your chest. Even maybe feel that shift to the back line of your hips, your tush. Breathe in, cow pose. Lift, lengthen. Again, collarbone open. Exhale, cat, curve and round. We're going to do this 2 more times. Inhale, cow pose, lift up. Exhale, cat, curve and round. 1 more, breathe in. Exhale, cat. Breathe out. And then just make some circles. Slow, fast, big, small. You can even have your belly, your chest reach your legs. Your hips might come off of your chair. And no worries, I promise we'll go the other way. Make 1 full rotation and then switch other way. Again, same thing. Your palms, your arms can even come off of your body. Get creative, relax your head, your neck. No need to do any extra work. 1 more circle and then pull back in. And then arms sweep overhead. Rotate your pinkies in towards one another to peel your shoulders down your back. Now you may want to take a wider stance with your arms. You may be closer together. No worries. Breathe in. Exhale, bring your right palm to your right leg, and then we're going to side body stretch. So lateral side body. I like to think my rib cage is opening up like an accordion to take that sound in. And then peel your top shoulder down. Your gaze can be down. It could be straight ahead, even up. Breathe in. Breathe out. Inhale all the way back up, reset. And then other side, lateral side body to the left. Again, peel your shoulder down, gaze where you want it to go, right? And no worries if it went different than the other side. Our bodies are unique to each side. Breathe in, breathe out. Inhale all the way back up. We're going to do that breath to movement just so you can feel that slowly start to imprint on your body. Exhale, side body stretch to the right. Inhale all the way back up. Exhale, side body to the left. Then we're going to do some twists and some turns. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, bring your left palm towards your right leg. Now your right palm, if you're in a chair, it could come to the seat. It could come to the back, but you choose. Breathe in. Exhale, navel to spine and twist. Now, no worries about how big your twist is because your twist is exactly how it should be for you today, right here, right now. Breathe in. Breathe out. Inhale back through center. And then we're going to switch. Right palm, left leg, wherever feels comfortable. Left arm, again, where do you need it to go for this side? Navel to spine, breathe in. Exhale, twist. And then pull all the way back in. And then just settle. Right? For those 5 moments that you really paid attention to your breath, you moved through your spine and opened it up. Hopefully you feel a little bit more like yourself than you did a few moments ago. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Megan. That was a great example of how to reset during the workday. I know I definitely needed that. And thank you, of course, again to our panelists today, Dr. Geiger with Providence Health Plan and Vashti Boyce with Wild Iris Consulting, LLC. Today, we touched on some important topics, and we want to make sure that we're leaving you with additional resources. Please view the chat for some links to information. If there were any questions that you think of or wanted to get addressed, make sure that you drop it in the chat before you leave, and we will answer it in a follow-up email. A big thank you to Providence Health Plan for sponsoring this event. And lastly, thank you to the audience, of course, for listening with open ears, for contributing to the conversation, and for tuning in today. After you exit out of Zoom, you'll see a pop-up to take a short survey. We would appreciate it if you'd complete this short 1-minute survey to provide some feedback about today's virtual event and ideas you'd like us to consider for the future. We hope to see you again on May 10th while we discuss developing healthy eating habits that support whole body wellness. A link to register for that event will be included in the chat. Have a great day, everyone.